And the country was turned upside down. It happened shortly after 8:40 a.m. on a Thursday. The panel was already tense, 4 people on set, 3 cameras recording, and a producer in the control room who later admitted they sensed something was about to erupt. Jasmine Crockett sat calmly, lips pressed together. Pen in hand, she was not fidgeting. She was not defensive. She was prepared. Karoline Leavitt, on the other hand, had been dominating the conversation for nearly 10 minutes, speaking over the moderator, shifting from one question to the next as if it were a quiz show. She entered with a sharp and condescending tone, launching pointed remarks at Crockett, many subtle, some not so much. Then it happened. The moderator turned to Jasmine and asked Congresswoman Crockett, "Do you have a response to that?" Jasmine did not blink. She looked directly at Karoline and said, "Sure, but before I respond to her views, I think we should address the real reason she is so vocal about mine." The panel fell silent. Jasmine reached into a folder that had been resting on her lap the entire time and pulled out a single sheet of paper. She briefly held it up, then handed it to the moderator. "This is an internal memo," she said, her voice calm yet firm, "circulated 2 weeks ago. Her campaign team approved it. It outlines a strategy targeting minority female representatives, not on policy, but on tone. Their aim is to portray us as aggressive, unhinged, and irrational, especially when we push back." Karoline's mouth opened, but no words came. Jasmine continued, "It was never meant to go public, but someone forwarded it to me. I stayed quiet initially because I wanted to confirm it was genuine, and now that I have, well, I thought if we are going to have this conversation on TV, let's address all of it." Karoline snapped. "You are lying," she said sharply. "You are lying. This is a setup. You planned this." Her voice cracked. She had lost control. She glanced at the moderator, who was frozen. Then to the producers off camera. She stood briefly, then sat again, as if unsure what her body was doing. "You think you can tarnish me with some fake document?" Karoline shouted. "You are trying to play the victim again." But Jasmine remained composed. "I am not playing anything," she said. "I am simply reading what your team wrote about people like me, and if that makes you uncomfortable, perhaps you should question why it was written to begin with." The panel descended into chaos. The moderator tried to regain order. One of the producers cut to a commercial break, but the damage had been done. Karoline was still shouting as the screen faded out. But what the audience at home missed, the part that would soon go viral, was the 14 seconds of unedited studio footage that leaked shortly after it, showed Karoline tearing off her microphone, pacing in circles, cursing under her breath. She turned to one of the producers and said angrily, "She set me up. She knew I could not defend that without appearing guilty, and perhaps that was the intention." By 10 a.m., the clip was everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, cable, news, even morning radio in Cleveland. People were not just reacting to Karoline's breakdown. They were responding to the moment. Someone finally expressed what many had felt for years, that some attacks do not stem from disagreement. They come from calculated strategy. But the real story did not begin here. It began days earlier, before any cameras were rolling. 5 days earlier. Jasmine Crockett was at a small cafe in downtown Des Moines, Iowa, not exactly the center of national politics, but it was where she liked to meet her longtime friend, Shelby Barnes. Shelby was not in politics, never had been, but had a talent for reading people. And that day, she did not sugarcoat it. "Karoline is not just poking at you, Jazz, she is laying a trap," Shelby said, stirring her coffee. "She wants you to react, that is the plan." Jasmine leaned back in her chair. "I know," she sighed, "but I am not playing that game. She wants a spectacle. I am not giving her one." But she was already thinking more deeply. It was not the first time Karoline had targeted her, not even the 10th. Their history was complex, complicated by Karoline's demeanor, smug, ready with a soundbite, constantly playing to the cameras. They had faced each other in hearings, town halls, even informal dinners in D.C., but Karoline never missed an opportunity to talk down to her. 2 weeks earlier, Jasmine had heard whispers, rumors of a private strategy call among Leavitt's team. Nothing concrete, just word of mouth, the kind of thing you note and stay cautious about. But then an anonymous email landed in Jasmine's inbox. No subject, no text, just an attachment, a PDF marked draft messaging memo, internal use only. She did not open it right away. In her field, you learn to be wary. It could be a hoax, a trap, a misdirection. But 3 days later, She had the document confirmed through a contact at the network. It was authentic. Inside was exactly what she had feared, a strategy focused on discrediting her not with reason, but with language. It detailed targeting Crockett and others like her, with coded tactics meant to provoke certain responses. The memo advised pushing them to the brink emotionally, then framing their reactions as unprofessional. Let them lose their cool. One line stated, and the audience will do the rest. Jasmine did not share it immediately, not even with her chief of staff. She kept reading it again and again, until the words felt like poison sinking into her skin. But what disturbed her more than the memo itself was the tone, the cold strategy behind it. It was not just politics, it was personal. And it was not just about her. It was about anyone who looked or sounded like her, any woman who had been called too loud, too emotional, or too angry. That was the real goal. By Sunday night, Jasmine had made up her mind. If Karoline wanted to play this game live on television, then fine, but the approach would change this time. Jasmine would not raise her voice. She would not take the bait. She would remain grounded, state facts, and let the truth do the speaking. Her team was unaware of the full plan. She told them she would manage the panel herself. Trust me, she said calmly. I have this by Monday. The media chatter had already begun. The upcoming panel was being promoted on the network's social platforms. Two of the boldest voices on opposite sides live this Thursday. Viewers expected a heated exchange. The producers were likely hoping for fireworks, and Karoline, she believed it would be her time to stand out, but she did not know. Jasmine had something prepared, something that would make it hard to hide behind smirks and quick lines. But Jasmine did not intend to just react. She planned to reveal, and the day she picked to do it was no coincidence. Thursday morning arrived with a sense of calm that did not match what was about to unfold. The studio was in Scottsdale, Arizona, neutral ground for both parties. chosen mainly for convenience and production ease. Jasmine arrived 20 minutes ahead of schedule. She always did, not for makeup or preparation, but to get a feel for the space, to sit, breathe, and remind herself why she was there. She spoke little upon arriving, simply greeted the crew with a polite smile, and sat in the green room, going over her notes. But the folder, that plain navy folder she carried, never left her lap. Karoline showed up a few minutes later, followed by her media advisor and an assistant, carrying iced coffee and a spare blouse in a garment bag. She was full of energy, laughing loudly, talking quickly, already treating the makeup room like a campaign event. She glanced at Jasmine once, then looked past her as if she were invisible. "Is she always this quiet before panels?" one of the junior producers asked, not bothering to whisper. Jasmine heard it. She did not respond. She kept reading her notes, calm and focused. 10 minutes before the segmenta runner came in. "We are on in 10, you will be mic'd up in 2. That was when Jasmine stood, tucked the folder under her arm, and walked to the hallway, where the producer was waiting. "Quick note," she said softly. "I have a document I would like to hand to the moderator. During the segment it relates to our discussion. Nothing provocative, just information." The producer raised an eyebrow but nodded. "Understood, as long as it does not derail the segment." "It will not," Jasmine answered. "It will clarify it." He walked into the studio without making a scene. She did not glance around or assess the room. She already knew what it would feel like. Controlled, staged, and slightly too eager for a clash. Karoline was already seated, Mick on adjusting her hair in the monitor row. "You finally brought notes," Karoline remarked, her voice just low enough to sound smug, but loud enough for everyone to hear. Jasmine remained steady. "Always have," she said as she sat down. "Just did not need them for you." There was a brief silence. One of the camera techs stifled a cough. Some crew members exchanged looks. Karoline's smile faded slightly. The moderator provided the usual overview: who would be introduced first, which topics were on the agenda, when to break. Jasmine nodded politely. She was not concerned with the outline. The moment she was preparing for was not listed in the rundown. 3 minutes before going live, Jasmine checked her mic, secured it properly, and opened the folder once more, focusing on one line from the memo that had stayed with her since she first read it. "If they defend themselves too quickly, label it emotional. If they hesitate, call it rehearsed. Either way, they loses." She repeated the words silently, not out loud, not as a declaration, as a reminder when the countdown started. 5, 4, 3. Jasmine took a slow breath and blinked once. She was not there for revenge. She was not here seeking justice. She was here seeking clarity. But clarity does not always land softly, and what was about to happen next would leave even the producers wondering if they should have ever scheduled them together. The camera light switched. They were live. The moderator greeted the viewers with the usual introduction, polished, composed practice. He introduced both guests, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett from Texas and former White House Assistant Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt. Polite smiles, a nod from Karoline, a calm look from Jasmine. The first few questions followed the usual pattern: border security, budget issues, education spending. Karoline jumped in quickly, speaking fast, positioning herself as the voice of reason in a so-called sea of chaos. She barely paused between her points, each sentence delivered like it belonged in a tweet. Jasmine let her talk. Then came the fifth question, on national rhetoric and political discussion. Congresswoman Crockett. The moderator asked, "How do we move forward when the dialogue keeps becoming personal attacks?" Jasmine did not hurry. She tapped her pen lightly against the folder, then looked directly at the moderator. "I think a better question," she said, "is who gains from these personal attacks and how they are being planned?" Karoline tilted her head. "Is that supposed to mean something?" Jasmine looked at her calmly. "You tell me." She opened the folder, took out the memo, and handed it to the moderator across the desk. "This is a real document," she said, her tone steady. "It is from Miss Leavitt's own team, a strategy paper, focused on discrediting women in Congress, especially black women, not through debating ideas but by attacking character. It suggests provoking us, then labeling our response as weakness." Karoline blinked, surprised. She gave a short, bitter laugh. "This is nonsense." "It is fake." Jasmine did not argue. "You can read it yourself. It is dated, signed, and internally reviewed by 2 senior members of her media team. It names me and 2 other representatives. It labels us too reactive, easy to spin, and emotionally unstable when pressured." The moderator glanced at the paper, his brow furrowed. "I am not here to perform," Jasmine said. "I am here to ask why this kind of political playbook is seen as acceptable. Why does this pass for strategy? Why are we calling people emotional instead of asking why they are responding the way they are?" Karoline leaned forward, her voice louder. "This is exactly what you people do. Turn everything into race, into gender. You lack facts, so you cry victim on cue. It is pathetic." The studio grew tense. Jasmine did not blink. "I am not crying," she said. "I am stating facts. You are making my point for me." Karoline's voice snapped. "You set this up. You planned it. You knew it would go viral. You do not care about truth. You care about headlines." Jasmine raised an eyebrow. "You are upset because now the headline is yours." Karoline stood up. The producers in the control room scrambled, unsure what to do, on motion to cut the feed. Another shook their head, knowing this was gold for ratings. The moderator tried to shift the discussion, but Karoline continued. "You ambushed me with fake documents. You want to turn this into an identity issue because you cannot handle a real debate." Jasmine leaned forward slightly, her voice calm. "Real debates require honesty. If you want to win with ideas, stop relying on manipulation." At that point, the panel fell apart. The moderator called for a commercial break, but the cameras stayed on a few seconds longer than they should have. That extra footage surfaced online within 30 minutes. Karoline pulling off her mic, throwing it on the floor, muttering, "This always happens when you let them talk too long." The word "them" sparked instant backlash within an hour. Hashtags were trending. Hashtag Crockett called it, spreading fast. Karoline cracked over the memo. Twitter erupted. So did YouTube. People posted screenshots, zoomed in on the memo as it aired, started making connections. Journalists started digging. Former staff leaked email threads verifying the memo's existence. The document was real, but even more powerful than the memo itself was how Jasmine responded. She did not shout. She did not gloat. She simply let the facts speak, and facts tend to echo more loudly after the noise fades, and the silence after this broadcast was overwhelming. By Friday morning, the clip had already passed 3 million views. It was not just cable news picking it up anymore. It was podcasts, Reddit forums, Instagram reels, even group texts, among people who had not watched cable in years. Everyone had something to say about the moment. Jasmine Crockett, calmly presented the memo, and let Karoline Leavitt unravel live. But what stayed with people was not the yelling, not the finger-pointing, or even the mic throw. It was the stillness, the way Jasmine barely moved, barely raised her voice, and still managed to turn the entire conversation around. In Dallas, a retired teacher reposted the clip with the caption, "My entire career, I was told to stay calm." When provoked, Jasmine just showed the world what that really looks like. In Bakersfield, a college student wrote, "This was not just political, it was personal. It is how people use calmness and call it professionalism, only when it suits them." And in Lansing, a campaign strategist for another up-and-coming congressional candidate told a reporter privately, "That memo, variations of it exist everywhere. What is different is that Crockett did not just reveal a tactic. She exposed the silence around it." Karoline's team scrambled to respond, first with an unsteady PR statement, late Thursday night calling the document fake and part of a coordinated attack. But by Friday afternoon, 2 former campaign aides had come forward, confirming it was real. Even admitted that the phrase "emotionally unstable" when cornered was something they had heard in staff meetings. That opened the floodgates. News anchors started asking tougher questions. Who else uses these tactics? How long have campaigns relied on personal attacks disguised as strategy? And why did it take someone like Jasmine Crockett, measured, prepared, and unapologetically direct, to break the cycle? Karoline disappeared from public view for 72 hours. No media appearances, no social media posts, according to one network. Sources: he almost canceled an interview, scheduled weeks in advance. She was shaken with good reason. Meanwhile, Jasmine did not gloat. She did not go on a media tour or do the usual post-viral circuit. Instead, she held a short press conference outside a community center in Shreveport, Louisiana. "I did not show that document to embarrass anyone," she told the crowd. "I showed it because we have let too many things slide for too long. We have brushed off disrespect. We have played along to keep it civil, and we have paid the price for it." He paused, looked straight into the camera. "You do not have to yell to be heard. You do not have to fight dirty to tell the truth. And you do not have to let others define you, just because they cannot outthink you." That clip became the second most viewed moment of the week. Commentators began reviewing old panel clip segments where women were interrupted, talked over, or dismissed as too emotional when they defended themselves. The Crockett-Leavitt exchange had pulled something back, and people could not stop looking deeper. It was not just a viral moment. It was a shift in how political talk was seen, and who people were now willing to listen to. But Jasmine had never planned to go viral. What she really wanted people to understand had not come out yet, and when it did, it would go even further. 3 days after the panel, a reporter from a medium-sized station in Toledo did what most national outlets did not. She contacted the woman who had first leaked the memo. Her name was Dana Haskinsa, former junior communications assistant on Karoline Leavitt's campaign team, 27 years old, fresh out of grad school, first political jobs. She had not spoken to anyone since the memo blew up, not publicly, not anonymously, nothing. But when the reporter called, Dana picked up on the first ring. "I could not sit on it," she said softly, voice shaking. "The more I watched what they were doing, behind closed doors, the way they talked about Crockett Bowman, even Loon, it stopped feeling like politics. It felt like a setup, like we were planning character hits before even reading their bills." Dana explained she had not leaked the memo impulsively. She had saved it, reread it, sat with it for days, then waited until the segment was confirmed. She knew Crockett would be on that panel. Did not know what Jasmine would do with the memo, if anything, but she hoped she would do more than read it. She hoped she would expose the thinking behind it. "I wanted someone to show these tactics were not accidental," Dana told the reporter. "They were planned and meant to silence people who already had to fight twice as hard to be heard." When Jasmine's office learned of the article, they contacted Dana privately. No press release, no media storm, just a simple message. "Thank you for having the courage we are all told to hide later." That evening, Jasmine did a live Q&A online. No handlers, no scripts. Just her in her home office, wearing a plain t-shirt and speaking straight to the camera. Someone asked, "Why did you not go harder? You could have destroyed her." Jasmine paused, took a sip of water, and leaned forward slightly. "Because I did not need to destroy her," she said. "The truth does not need to be dressed up. It does not need glitter or yelling or cheap shots. It just needs room. Another viewer asked what she hoped would happen next. Honestly, she said, voice softer. Now I hope people think twice before dismissing someone as angry or unreasonable, just because they did not like being challenged. I hope campaigns stop hiring companies to create new ways to discredit people, and I hope the next time a woman in this role stays calm while being disrespected. Someone notices the chat was filled with comments. Respect. This is leadership. She did not have to yell. She won the whole country by staying composed. The power of that moment was not just in what Jasmine revealed, it was in how she revealed it. On a stage meant for sound bites, she gave people silence, and in that silence, the truth stood out. Karoline appeared again a few days later with a pre-recorded apology video that barely addressed the issues. She blamed her outburst on stress and poor communication. The memo she called unauthorized and said she never read it. It did not convince people. Too many had seen the clip too. Many recognized the pattern, and too many finally had words for what they had faced for years. Jasmine did not reply to Karoline's video. She did not need to, because the memo had done something more lasting than take down one opponent. It had shown a mirror to the entire system, and people finally stopped ignoring it. But real change does not come from one moment. It comes from what people choose to do after it passes. It was almost 2 weeks after the broadcast when Jasmine Crockett spoke at a local town hall in Tyler, Texas. The venue was not large, just over 100 chairs, half filled with seniors, young organizers, and a few curious people who had only recently heard her name through a viral clip. There were no reporters, no fancy lights, just a woman in a navy blazer standing in front of a folding table with a mic that crackled now and then. During the Q&A, an older woman in the second row raised her hand. Her voice was slow but firm. I watched what happened on TV, she said, and I have to ask, how do you stay that calm when someone is trying to tear you down? Jasmine looked down for a moment, then met the woman's eyes. You breathe, she said. You remember why you are there, and you realize it is no longer about you, it is about everyone who never had a mic in front of them. A younger man spoke from the back. But do you not ever feel like you are being forced to be perfect just to be taken seriously? That question hung in the air. Jasmine nodded slowly. All the time, but I stopped aiming for perfect. I aim to be consistent. I aim to be clear. Because the ones coming after us, they deserve more than a moment. They deserve momentum. Applause rose slow, steady from people who did not come for a show, but stayed because they felt something real later. That night, Jasmine sat alone in her Karenjin off, scrolling through messages on her phone. One caught her eye, a private DM from a middle school teacher in El Paso. Read my 8th grade girls watched your segment in class zone. Of them asked me, why did that other lady get so mad? When Jasmine stayed calm, I did not have the right words, but I just told her that is what power looks like when you do not let people take it from you. Jasmine smiled, her thumb hovering over the screen. It was not about Karoline anymore. Not really. It was not even about the memoir. It was about something much bigger. The exhaustion of being misunderstood. The constant balancing act around perception. The choice to either play along or speak up. And Jasmine had made her choice. The next morning, she posted a short message online, let the moment speak. But after that, let the work begin. She did not need a victory. She needed people to listen, not just to her, but to every voice that has ever been called difficult, aggressive, too much. Because the truth is, standing up does not always look loud. Sometimes it looks like patience, like control, like handing someone a document and saying, this is real. Now decide what you will do with it. And while the headlines would fade, and the panel would soon be replaced by another shouting match, what Jasmine Crockett gave the country was not a spectacle. It was a mirror one some were not ready to face, one others could not stop looking into. And maybe that is the real message. If the truth makes someone snap, maybe the problem was not the truth, but how long they thought they could hide from it. If you found something meaningful in this story, something that made you think differently, do not just scroll past, share it, talk about it, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that are not afraid to tell it how it is.